Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, you know how we do it here. I want to stop and thank our guests personally because I know they're coming with several things I deem very expensive. The first is time. And I want to thank you, Hale, for coming and sharing some of your precious time. That commodity, many of us have misused it. But here you are, and you're willing to share some of that with us. And I want to thank you personally. The other is your journey. It created who you are today. And the fact that you're here to share with us, that you're trusting us with that information so that we can learn of you and become better human spirits while we're here on this planet. Hale, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure. I know you have a great body of work, and tell the people, I know it'll take us a while if you begin to go into all of it, but tell them as much as you want. And then what we do here at Threads of Enlightenment is simply deconstruct, as I said to you, that story as to how did you get there? What did you
Sure.
all of those fun
So,
things?
yes. So the body of work that this body mind is sharing with the world is called the Sedona Method, and it's something that it was actually a gift that we all received initially from my mentor, Lester Levinson, and it is a tool that shows you how to tap a natural ability that all of us have, but often don't use. And this natural ability is the ability to let go of whatever it is that's standing in our way, both from having, being, and doing what we choose, but also whatever is preventing us inside from just fully embracing this life as it is unfolding. Often in life, we're running interference. We're not really relating to life. We're relating to our picture of the way it should be or could be. And in doing that, we're not really fully alive. We're holding back, we're holding on, we're just struggling and suffering unnecessarily. And the Sedona Method is a tool that shows you how to get out of the struggle, to let go of the baggage you're carrying from whenever it's from. It could be from a moment ago, or it could be from when you were very young. And it doesn't actually matter the story of why the baggage is there, or who you might blame for it, whether it be yourself or someone else. It doesn't matter how long it's been there. It doesn't matter the circumstances. What matters is this weight that we appear to carry that is completely unnecessary. As you put your baggage down, then you can just fully celebrate life as it is. Everyone and everything. You can discover that everyone and everything is just part of the one energy that all is. That one beingness that all is. That of course includes you and me, but it's beyond you and me and is not limited by you and me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, whatever you're doing in life or not doing in life, whatever is happening around you, can be enriched just by you showing up and you letting go of the filters on life. So then you live life with your heart wide open and your mind fully clear. And this is a gift, not just for yourself, but for everyone and everything. And so to summarize that, feelings are just feelings. They're not facts and they're not you, and you can let them go. And
Yeah.
you're not your story. You're not just the inhabitor of that physical body. You are everything and nothing in particular. And that is already freedom. This, whatever is being experienced in this moment, whatever is apparently happening, is already boundlessness, is already beauty, is already unconditional love.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. I agree 100%. And I want to tell all the listeners, I have been utilizing Hale stuff for many years. When I started my journey, even way before The Secret came out, and when it came out and I saw him and was introduced, then I began to follow him because he resonated with me. And so I'm excited about this conversation because there's a lot for you and I to gain from it. Hale, talk to us about your childhood. I always like to take people back to the childhood because I tell them it is the place by which we reside for a while as we move through life. At that
Yes.
place is where the programming and of our belief system begins. And we have entities that are coming and vying for our attention. We have the family, we have religion, we have society, we have corporate America. If you don't believe me, look at your TV. We have all of these
Uh-huh.
entities outside of us telling us who we are and that we ought to behave. And I keep telling people the invisible fence by which they control the masses is the word normal. You have to be normal because
Right.
we're telling you what normal looks like. And anything outside of normal, something is wrong with you. So talk to us about your place of normality, where
Well,
you began to be
I was the
programmed, if you will,
firstborn son in a
and what
Jewish
did it look
family,
like?
living in Brooklyn, New York. And the first few years of life,
Mhm.
uh, I don't really remember much about it, but I was told that I was just this happy, exuberant baby because I was the center of everyone's attention, including uh, uh, my extended family, my uncles, my aunts, because uh, I was not
Yeah,
just the, excuse me one sec, let me just turn this off. Firstborn male child in my father's family, for my mother and father, but for all his brothers and sisters. And so, so there was a big deal about that back then. And,
wow.
uh, and again, I don't really remember much about that. And then at
Mm.
age 3, my parents had their uh, second son was born. And he was born with severe mental retardation. He was born
Yeah,
with part of his brain missing. And so it went from a blissful experience to a very traumatic one because both my parents were crushed by that. And I went from being the center of attention to being watching my parents kind of
yeah,
imploding and doing their best to care for a young child who they eventually had
yeah,
to institutionalize. And so that changed the color of growing up. And I had to do a tremendous amount of letting
yeah,
go around that once I learned how you do that. And it's interesting though, it also was an amazing gift because what happened was within that, I
Yeah.
discovered this tremendous desire to help. And because I really wanted to help my parents. And I also wanted to get back into their good graces, of course, because because they were so distraught, they started reacting to me
Good
like
grace. Yeah.
I was just in the way, and there was just normal childhood things that I would do became traumatic for them and thereby traumatic for me, like playing in the dirt. But the gift was, it inspired me to want to give
Yeah.
back to
Wow.
the world. You know, I don't know why that's what happened, but that's what happened. And so that was something I was looking for in my life. At first, I thought when I was a little older that I could become a doctor. And as a doctor, I could help prevent things like this or help people deal with things like this. And then I also started looking at self-help and spirituality. And that I just attracted me a lot more. And so I started on a spiritual path as a teenager. And I studied things both from the East and the West.
Wow.
And then I met at age 22, I met Lester Levinson, who was a fully realized a master, and I was blown away by the meeting. He came as a guest to a one-year seminar that Leonard Orr was teaching that I helped organize with another person, and we went out to lunch with Lester, and it was just all of us sitting around the table and just having lunch. But I could feel that this person was the first teacher I'd ever met who was no longer seeking. He had ended the search, and there was this tremendous sense of peace and joy and calmness and love that was just, it was coming out of his every pore, it felt like. And it blew me away. And so he didn't say much about what the Sedona Method was. He just said you sit around the table and release. And that seemed a little dubious to me. I had no idea what that meant. But I decided that if you give me just a little bit of a taste of what he was a living embodiment of, I was in. And so the next weekend, I started what was then a 2-weekend training. And before the 2 weekends were over, in addition to just being blown away by the power of what was being taught and how it was immediately affecting me, I had this deep sense that this is what I was here to do. I was here to help Lester get the Sedona Method out to the world. And that has been my life ever since. Before Lester passed away, it gave all its copyrights to me in the early 90s and asked me to continue the work. And what came from that is this whole set of tools that we now call the Sedona Method. And it's reached hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. And it continues to help people every day. And those of you listening, it can help you too.
Yeah. I can attest to that, guys. And as we have this conversation, I know he's going to go into some of that. And so I want to leave that for that time, because it does work. So here you are, this young man. I mean, you started pretty early on the road to self-development, if you will. because most people, we start in our 30s when life is all spinning out of control and we're losing our minds and whatever. But here's this young adult, um, so in tuned with that other side of the individual that we are not aware of because of the programming, the busyness of living, the busyness of getting up, running to school, running to work, and all of these things, and not really being in tune with who they are. And so that's how we began to numb the aspects of our spiritual being. But here you are, this young man, awake to it, and to run into someone of that caliber. What a gift. I personally, Hale, I think the trauma is a purposeful trauma. I think it's the incident that awakes us to what we need to do. And so I think every trauma is a purposeful one if we use it correctly, because it is designed to cause you and I to dig in deeper from that side, from the spiritual side, and to see what it is, and it will help us to move through and create whatever we need to do. So I think the trauma is a purposeful trauma. People think I'm weird, but that's just my assessment. So here you are. You were given this assignment. You're moving through. You went through the program. You are learning the art of the Sedona
Yes.
Method. You're clarifying and seeing who you are. What happened to you, Hill, at those 2 weeks? What was happening to you internally, being in that space for that amount of time,
We were doing back then
drinking
too, is
all day long? What was
people
going on
examine
inside of you and to you?
their life from a new perspective. And what we do is and uh, we examine things from the perspective that we're not limited the way we believe
Yeah.
we're limited. And we discover how to let go of the sense of limitation. Now, I really don't have a lot of memory of the course itself. The most memorable thing was, for me, was just feeling what it felt like to let go consciously, being in charge of it.
Yeah.
And I also remembered this realization because it was it was prophetic.
Yeah.
That was 1976, and this is now 2023, and this body mind is still engaged in this,
Yeah.
and still teaching this and helping people with it and sharing this. And so the main thing I took away from that week was this gift of a process that I not only incorporated into my own life and transformed my life, but I was given this gift of sharing it, because something you mentioned earlier is that when, and Lester believed this strongly too, that there's the giver is blessed. And he felt that one of the highest things you can do is to support someone else in their process of self-discovery, to support them in discovering their own innate nature, their own freedom. And when I first started teaching the Sedona Method in 1981, and I remember being incredibly grateful for being chosen to be in that position of helping others discover the truth of who they are. And so it it was this
Yeah.
gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Whenever this body mind is in front of other people and talking about them, there's just this inner smile that's actually been there
Yeah.
continuously for a very long time, but it just gets bigger. And the it is so wonderful to see
Yeah.
people transform, to have people have traumas they've been carrying for
I.
decades, watch them melt
Yeah.
and have the light come back into their eyes and the aliveness come back into their bodies,
Yeah.
and have them know that they now have a tool they can use to continue experiencing that in their lives, and to helping them live life to the fullest, and
Mm-hmm.
helping them be free of all their inner burdens. And so I've watched people who didn't have any money let go and
Yeah.
become wealthy. I've watched people who were confronting very serious health conditions either
Yeah.
have them find the right practitioner to help
Mm-hmm.
them heal, uh, or uh, have the body mind heal itself, or the problem with disease is the dis-ease we have with it. I've seen people also gracefully leave the
Yeah.
body because they were letting go, and and also be at
Yeah.
peace even when the body was in tremendous pain. And I've watched
Mm-hmm.
people who thought their marriages were over, only to discover the spark again and the love. I've watched people who were
Yeah.
trapped in relationships that were really not serving them anymore,
Yeah.
sometimes in extreme ways, gain the courage to set themselves free from them. And I've seen everything in between. And watching people
Yeah.
transform is just amazing. And to me, the most amazing thing to watch is people discovering that they're not just a body, that their thoughts aren't who they are, that there is this exquisite beauty that is this, that's
Yeah.
already unfolding in as life,
Yeah.
and that their life isn't a personal life. It is just part of the one life that all is. And all of this has been a continual inspiration and
Yeah.
transformation for this particular body mind. And I'm also fortunate is that many people are passing this on too. There are many tools out there that are based on the Sedona method. There are many teachers who teach various
Yeah.
things that to help people with money and relationships and health, who
Yeah.
use the Sedona method both for their own personal benefit, but also to help their students.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just everyday people like you and me who are just sharing joy, spreading joy and peace,
Yeah.
just because they're it's what's bubbling out of their own hearts. And so all of that is what's inspired this
Yeah.
particular body mind to keep doing the same work
Yeah.
for over 4 decades.
Yeah. I remember when
Oh,
we were
right.
talking about baggage. I remember you in the movie walking with the two
Yeah.
bags in your hand and putting it down and say, "Let it go." I remember that when you were saying that, it came to my mind, and I had seen that movie quite a long time ago. So here you are, Hale. You went through this 2 week program. And what happened to you at
Well,
that
I did two
moment once
things.
you came
One
out
is
of
I was
there?
very young,
You
so I
began to
needed to have a
practice.
career and do
Where
things
did you
in
begin
life.
to
And I found
navigate
that
your life, if
the
you will,
letting go
once you
really helped
were
me become successful
from there?
uh,
Hmm.
in the different things that I did. And
Yeah.
at the same time, I immediately wanted to give back. So I learned the Sedona Method in 1976.
Hmm.
And in 19, there were only three courses at the time:
Yeah.
the basic course, the advanced course, and the teacher's course. I took the basic course in November of 1976, the advanced course in January of 1977, and the
Hmm.
teacher's training in February of 1977. But at age
Hmm.
22, it was a little early to do that as a full-time thing. So I led a few workshops, but then we mutually decided that I needed to just live it in my life. So I did.
Yeah.
I lived it in relationships. I lived
Yeah.
it in in my career. I lived it uh, so that my body
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
maintain a
Yeah.
high level of health and well-being. And I lived in Manhattan. I moved to Manhattan from Brooklyn, got an apartment, and just
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of celebrated life. And at the same time, I stayed very immersed in releasing.
Hmm.
They had used to have workshops, free workshops twice a week. I think it was Wednesdays and Fridays. I can't remember now, but it was twice a week, and I
Yeah.
rarely missed one. And all I did is incorporate it into my life. Releasing, letting go was something that
Yeah.
I tried as best I could
Hmm.
to do throughout the day. And it wasn't just because I thought it was good for me. I could feel that each time I let go, there was this sense of
Yeah.
just ease and power and grace and warmth and a kind of a release
Hmm.
of bottled up energy that happened. And so it was
Yeah.
honestly a little addicting, not in a bad way, because I was addicted to love and light and truth. But it was still almost an addiction because it felt so good. I,
Yeah.
I, I just kept being drawn to it. You know, many people have a meditative
Yeah. Yeah.
practice, and I never got that
Yeah.
into meditation because just one or two releases using the Sedona method,
Yeah.
I felt the same as if I just meditated for a half an hour. So
Hmm.
and it was something I could do while driving a car, being on the subway in Manhattan, uh, uh,
Yeah.
walking down the street. I remember in 1977, I don't remember when in 77,
Yeah.
I was in Times Square in New York City. It was twilight, or it may have even been night. And at the time, it was before it was gentrified. Times Square now is this busy place that is a tourist attraction, but it was the opposite. Uh, and uh, and what
Yeah. I remember I lived there.
that's
Me,
great. That's
Queens
great. So
Village.
anyway,
You
I
know,
was
I came
there
from Queens Village, and then I moved
at a
to
time
New
where
York
it wasn't safe to be
when I
there.
got older.
But the
So
sense
to
of the
Manhattan. So
personal self just kind of dropped
yeah, so
away,
I know.
and there was this sense of profound peace, even being in
Yeah,
this crazy environment. And that got my attention.
yeah,
That 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 happening. One is
yeah,
I didn't such profound peace, even in an environment that was not conducive
yeah,
to profound peace. And so and I had many experiences like that through the years, not just the immediate feedback of each time I let go. There
yeah,
was this sense of
yeah,
peace and joy, sometimes even bliss. And uh, much later on in life,
yeah, yeah,
in 1998, I think it was, I was I
Yeah.
I had just led a seminar for 40 people that was a very high seminar in Sedona, Arizona. I lived there for 30 years, and I had a mild earache, so I went to the local doctor, and he gave me eardrops. But then 24 hours later, I passed out in my bedroom, and my wife had called an ambulance, and I was rushed to the emergency room in Flagstaff, Arizona. And uh, I just the doctors discovered I had severe meningitis and encephalitis, and my brain was swollen, and I was in a lot of pain. Well, actually, at first I was pretty unconscious, but then when I came back from that after a few days in the hospital, there was tremendous pain, but at the same time, there was this profound peace. Again, a
Yeah.
very unexpected thing to experience with your life on the line and being in pain. And again, that was another extreme example of the power of letting go. And it was also another gift because
Yeah.
knowing that
Yeah.
I could have these physical challenges and still have this sense of peace and equanimity enabled me to one have compassion for people going through similar experiences, but enabled me to be able to show people ways that when they had physical challenges, even extreme ones like that, I could speak from authority that you could still let go and be unaffected. And even though the doctors weren't sure I'd ever fully recover, uh, I did. And I kept
Yes.
doing this work. So,
Yeah.
and and again, I'm not the only one. I've seen people go through trauma and come out
Mhm.
transformed for the better as opposed to
Yeah.
being crushed by it.
Yeah. I think I tell people meditation, and people, when you say meditation, Hale, they think you
Yes,
have to be there for
yes,
40
yes,
hours and 2 hours and days and all that stuff. Meditation is changing your state, and it could take you a
yes,
couple of seconds to do that
yes,
if you know what to do and how to bring yourself into that state.
yes,
You don't need an hour. You just need to change your state. And how quick you do that is just as powerful if you sit there for several hours. And to be doing that daily and constantly is a powerful place to be and to live. And so it is a changing of the state. And I believe, Hill, that a lot of the diseases and the diseases that we have today are trapped emotions that are there, and it erodes the body, it erodes the temple because we haven't let it go. And your revelation is to walk people through using your three-step
yes,
process to begin to identify that and walk it through, and then to let it go. And they're able to gain their freedom from what looks and is a simple process, but one of the most powerful process that one will ever encounter in a life, because within that moment you are shifting, as I said, you're shifting your state. You are now creating a brand new state, and that state that brand new state is that state of freedom. You're walking through within just a few steps and changing your life. And I'm talking to people that you're listening to me. I'm talking to you stuff that has happened to me personally. Um, I have used Hale's technique to free myself from things that were those briefcases, the two bags. I keep seeing you walking with Hale with those two bags in that movie, man, uh, carrying this heavy thing. I was that way, and I'm able to
yes,
let go of many things. And letting go is a daily practice that one must become um, a lifestyle. And as you do that, you begin to, as Hale was saying, people can get healed from that lifestyle. People's relationship can be saved from that lifestyle. So here you are, you have practicing it now. You are in a life. You're able to become a teacher, a servant, if you will, and educating people as to who they are. I want you to take and you mentioned some beautiful stories, about the effect that people have done, and I know there are millions here that you've come across in your life, and that have been utilizing your technique. Walk with us, take us into that space, and I'm going to recommend people look at the movie as well because you get a chance to experience it. Take us into your a meeting with one of those folks that you're sitting down
Well, but
and you
why don't
see
we
them. I know
do,
you're
why don't
sensing
we
them because you're
actually
spiritually in
take
tune, and you can
all
see
your listeners and
the
viewers into the
baggage that
experience
they're
itself?
coming
Why
with,
don't, rather than me describing what a
and you're
meeting's
sitting
like,
down with them,
why don't we turn
and they're
this into
excited about
a
this
five
meeting.
minute
Talk
session
to us, Hale.
that will help people come away with a small taste of what the tool can do for them, and a tool that they can start to use right away. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yes, excellent.
That's great. That's great.
Oh,
So,
definitely.
uh, before I take us into a process, well, one of the things I
Yeah, I
like to
think
do
so.
when I'm
I'm
leading the
excited for them
seminars
because I know that
is,
many of them will be free
or trying to
and walking
describe
into
this
that
to
freedom.
someone who
So
doesn't really
yes,
know that much about it, is to demystify letting go. Because a lot of us think it has to be hard work. And many tools believe you have to go back and re experience things or understand why you feel the way you feel. And this little uh, analogy I'm going to do now with everyone will help you to see how simple and powerful it can be. And then I'll describe the process we're going to go through together, and then I'll take us through the process. For or wherever you're sitting. Uh, and if you're in a place where you can't do this easily, then just imagine doing it. So, for the sake of this analogy, this pen or this pencil or this paperclip or whatever you're holding in your
definitely.
hand represents your limiting thoughts and feelings and beliefs, your anger, your fear, your frustration, your anxiety, whatever it is. And your hand represents your gut or your awareness. So now close your hand around the object and
Yeah.
grip it really tightly. Now, if you did this long enough, it would start to feel really familiar and also really uncomfortable. But that's enough gripping. Now roll this around in your hand. Is this object attached to your hand? Obviously not. But this is how it feels when we've held on to a feeling for a while. It feels like it is us. It's even in our language. We don't usually say, I feel sad. We say, I'm sad. We don't usually
Okay.
say, I feel angry. We say, I'm angry. I am the anger. I am the sadness. And that's actually how it feels to us. So now close your hand lightly around the object and could you just let it go? Just drop it. That's what we mean by letting go. It really can be that simple.
Yeah.
And it's hard to imagine at first that it can be.
Hmm.
But let's go through it experientially. I'm going to ask a series of questions that pull you into a natural ability that you already have. Young children come in knowing how to do this. Unfortunately, we train them out of it as adults, not intentionally, but it's what happens. And so once you learn how to do this again
Yeah.
as an adult, the more you use it, the more you're in control of the process of letting go, and the more you want to let go because it feels so good and it transforms things.
Hmm.
So the first process we're going to do together is a basic process that we usually start with. And so the questions that I'll ask you is as follows. The first is just to focus on something in your life that you're wanting to change or improve. And that usually engenders some sort of feeling. And the next question will be, could you just welcome or allow it? Sometimes just in welcoming or allowing, whatever it is, it starts to dissolve. That's another way that we help people let go, besides just choosing to drop it, just allowing it or welcoming it. And then I'll ask the letting go questions. And the letting go questions, the first one is, could you let it go? And if I know if you were able to drop that object, or at least could imagine it, then I know you can. And just be open to it as a possibility. The next question is, would you let it go? And would you just means, are you willing to? And if you're never sure, if you're not sure on your own, just ask yourself, would I rather hold on to this pain and this suffering, or would I rather be free and have my goals? And the last question is when. And when is an invitation to do it now. Now, I'm going to say, could you, would you, and when? Whereas when you're doing it on your own, you could use that question, or you could say, could I, would I, and when? And so now I'll take us through it. Now, the timing that I'll use is a timing, it's a medium pace that most people can keep up with. If you're doing this on your own, go at your own pace. There's no rush. The only thing I'd recommend is stay open to it. Be open to the possibility it can be this simple and easy to transform your life. And also avoid debate. The questions are yes or no questions, and you'll let go even if you say no. Just be honest with yourself. And you can do this silently to yourself. All the Sedona Method is something you can do in the middle of a conversation without people even needing to know that you're doing it, because the questions are just pointers towards an experience of letting go. And once you're familiar with the experience, it can be duplicated at will. So just for a moment, just settle as best you can. Let the mind pause as best you can. And just notice what is apparently happening. And then could you allow yourself to focus on your life and think of something in your life that you'd like to change or improve? Something that may be causing some sort of inner distress. And it doesn't matter what you pick. And whatever came to mind, along with whatever feelings it brought up inside of you, could you just simply welcome it or allow it? Is it welcome? Is it what's apparently happening? And then, as best you can, just for now, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? Now, you might have felt a little letting go on could you, a little on would you, and more on when, or you may have saved it up, or you may not be sure yet. Just stay open to it, because we'll go through it a couple more times so you can get more of a feeling sense of what's being pointed to. So again, focus on that same thing or anything else that you're wanting to change or improve. And could you just welcome however you feel inside? Could you just allow it? Is it welcome? Is it what's apparently happening? And then, as best you can, just for now, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? Now, that time you probably felt it a little more. Some of the debate may be dropping away. And by the way, I'm not saying you're letting go of the situation. You're letting go of your feelings about it, which opens the door to transformation. So let's run through that one more time. Allow yourself again to focus on that same thing or anything else that you want to change or improve. And could you just simply welcome whatever that stirs up inside? Could you just let it be here? Is it welcome? Is it what's apparently happening? And then, as best you can, just for now, could you let go of the feeling? Just could you? Would you? When? Okay, good. Now, that's a very simple process. But if you experiment with it in your own life, you'll start to gain immediate benefit. And the more you experiment with it, the more benefit you'll see.
And I know that when Hale, when I was going through with mine, some of the dark times in my life, I would use this method, and it would usher me into this laughter. And I want people to be aware of that, because you're changing your state, and you're changing your state from this painful. And the expression, one of the expression that one would do in freedom is laughter. Is that what laughter does is simply opens you wider. It allows your heart to expand, and it manifests in your face, and you just have this perpetual grin that you walk around with. And I gained much of my freedom, and I knew it had solidified. When you get emotional, some people laugh, some people cry, because it was an emotion that was logged and blocked. And when you identify it, you feel it, you identify it. And when as Hale began to ask those questions, and you ask those questions to yourself, many cry, some laugh, some weep, but the expression is you have been freed. And yeah, that's one way of maybe celebrating it. Maybe that's how we celebrate it, that we, however we choose to celebrate it, through that release. But that was a powerful, I know it works. And that is why I wanted you to do that, because I know many of those that are will be listening to this will obtain that freedom and experience it, many of them maybe for the first time. And to see that it's not a long time.
Right.
It's just intentional what you do. And that intention
Again,
is only steps. It'll
your
change it.
pump was primed.
And
You've been
so,
doing this for decades, so it
Hale, I
doesn't
don't
take
even know
much.
what to. I went through one couple as you were doing them, and so I'm in that state that you're familiar with.
Oh, don't bring yourself back. Just enjoy
And
it.
I
Yes.
I know I've crossed over, and so I'm trying to bring myself back to, so that we can engage, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a place of bliss, and you ought to be visiting there daily, as
Right.
you know,
I agree with
many
you.
people are hooked on things. I mean, why not? This is a good thing to be hooked on. I know the young people today, many are, Hale, are hooked on their phones,
Right.
computer, and coffee. You can name thousands of things that one can be hooked on. And I tell people you're meditating all day, you just don't know it. You have picked a thought, and but when you are doing this,
Yes.
you are now
Yes.
purposely doing it. You're not just sitting there and it happens. And when you become that purposeful creator, life becomes more interesting. It's more of a participation, a joy comes. And so you ought to be hooked on the experience of freedom. It is a powerful thing. And so many of you need to start practicing it as often as you can, and you will see that the phone and the computer and all the other things
Yeah,
will
yeah.
lose their value. Right now, they're valuable to you. But when you begin to put some value into you, you will lose that phone will not gain all of your attention. You will be loving, as Hale said earlier, you got hooked on it. you know and that bliss, you're going to want to get hooked. And so here you are. You've been doing this for 30, 40 years, maybe even longer, Hale, and you've seen, as I said, thousands. I am one of those that have been using your technique and getting extreme powerful results. And anyone, I invite you guys to get into his space. I will provide all of those things. Get into his books. He has a series of books. He has a series of programs that you need to go. Some movies are out there, some videos. He has his own podcasts. All of those things you need to get into his space. Why I tell people, don't be a member. A lot of churches, as they say, are busy about members. I am not interested in members. Disciples change the world, Hale. Disciples, become a disciple. As Hale became a disciple, he was able to change the world. And so I invite you guys to come into his space and become a disciple so that you can change your life first and then change your world. And so I want to thank you so much, because your insight
Oh, well,
has
thank
been
you. This has
such a
been really a lot
valuable
of fun.
tool for my life personally. And I actually have deposited a lot of what you have taught me, Gil, and I've learned from you. I've deposited that into my children's life, and so I see them doing the same as you have taught me many years ago. So thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Oh, again, thank you.